All right. So today we are going to talk about where we think podcast advertising is going. So in 2020, we saw Spotify spending hundreds of millions of dollars paying for Joe Rogan, paying for other. I think they bought Luminary as well. Maybe the podcast subscription thing. They spent on Megaphone. They spent on pod sites. They bought Chartable. These are all podcast software products. And we want to talk about where we think podcast advertising is going in general.
Yeah, so podcast is booming. It's been booming. It's booming more so in certain regions over others. Like in China, podcasting is really huge. In the US, it's getting bigger and bigger. In India, it's starting to grow at a rapid pace based on the stats and the data I saw. And it's just a new form of radio ads. But the cool thing about podcast ads is it's digital. You can do a lot of interesting things to make them more trackable based on how people are listening to it versus someone listening in their car, which makes it a little bit harder to track. But depending on how they're listening to it, you can do some really cool stuff. I'll give you a great example of this. A lot of podcasts do video formats, and I'm starting to see popular podcasts do ads with QR codes in them so people can scan them while they watch the videos. You can consider that a podcast or a video version of it, but that's a little bit interesting because it makes it more trackable and you can do really creative offers right then and there to people, and you can rotate it up based on the landing page that you're sending people to. So you can have your offer, people scan the QR code, and then boom, you can start rotating and switching up the landing page over time as your offers change as well. But I think it's going to boom. I think there's a huge ROI in it, and it's really amazing for branding. What I've experienced, and I don't have any stats or data on this one, when we've leveraged podcast advertising at our agency, NP Digital, we found that you don't necessarily reach as many people as you would through some of the other channels, of course, compared to Google or Facebook, but more so we're seeing the quality of the individual from a buying power perspective much better, in which the people listening in podcasts typically have more money to spend, at least based on the sources where we're advertising.
Yeah, so I wanted to share something real quick in terms of our Chartable that shows how we stack up, how our audiences are when it comes to our podcast. So with Marketing School, I'm just going to share my screen. Those of you that can see, and I'll read it off as well. So let's take a look at this. So basically you can see for Marketing School, the dark blue line is where we are, and then the yellow one is the benchmark. So let me just read this off. So those of you that
You
are
mean
listening.
light blue line?
Sorry, light blue line. So 200 household income, U.S. household demographics. So household income, 250K or more. We're basically on par with the benchmarks. And then 200K to 250K, we're a little below. But then 175 to 199K, we're way above. Same thing for 125. And then for the most part, we're like, some of these were behind, but some of these were way ahead. But people are pretty educated on our podcast. We're above the benchmark when it comes to college, and we're a little below the benchmark when it comes to some college. So I can say that pretty affluent
And
audience.
where we're behind, which is actually good, when you look at the budget ranges of 15,000 all the way to 49,000, we're behind the industry benchmark, but we make it up in which we have more listeners who are making more money.
Yep. And then the other thing here too is that you can see that, I'm just going to pull up this Edison chart over here. So podcasting familiarity is continuing to grow over time, even though it seems like the growth decelerated a little bit because of the boom in 2020. Let's just call it that. But podcast listening is continuing to grow. So you can see it went from, in 2021, 57 million or so up to 62 million. And you have to keep in mind, this is based on the United States, which is 330 million people approximately. It doesn't look like I have the right screen up, but let me just here. I can share this. Here we go. This is the right screen. So you can see 79 over here and then 62 over here. And then Edison, this is where the report, I'm pulling up this report from, they released this basically in March of 2023. They always have an annual report that you can take a look at. The final thing I'll call out here is that when I look at advertising for our podcast, we've had a great partner in DreamHost for the last couple of years. And we've also tested with other partners because obviously it's a shorter podcast. We don't want to have too many partners, but we did a test with Shopify and they've now come back to us to say, we want to do another test. And that actually says a lot because you're not going to continue to market unless you're seeing results. So we're doing a test with Shopify. We're doing a test with Athletic Greens right now. And then we're also doing a test with Microsoft. that one's exciting to us because the Microsoft, shout out to Scott, it's a Microsoft Clarity.
Shopify as well.
Yeah,
Did
so
you mention
Shopify, Microsoft, and AG1, and potentially even 8 Sleep, which is a company I put some money into. It's the sleep tech product. So I think it's going to continue to boom, and it's been nothing but good for us since we started doing this almost 7 years ago, Neil.
We've been podcasting for 7 years now?
Yeah, we started, almost 7 years.
I think podcasting is great. I haven't seen tons of business from our own podcast. Here and there, we get some referrals, but I believe in the omni-channel approach. I know you do as well. And if you're going to do stuff, might as well have podcasting in the loop as well, or in the mix. And I would go with podcasting, video ads, banner ads, media ads, all that kind of stuff. Like a thing I was talking to one of my executives about today was, a lot of people know me as Neil Patel, but they don't know I have an agency, NP Digital. And we're just like, all right, maybe we should blitz Ad Week, Ad Age, Campaign, and a lot of the places where CMOs read for a year straight and just spend millions of dollars doing that, so that way our name gets across.
Here's some
But
perspective.
I think the branding's worth it. Just Nike, right? You buy Nike shoes not because you did a Google search. It's just people are familiar with Nike, the brand.
Here's some perspective on our side. So when people reach out to my agency, our salespeople, so they've told me that 70 to 75, let's call 70 to 80% of people actually know who I am. And a lot of it's actually from the podcast. And obviously you've been in the game for a while, right? You've been producing a lot of content everywhere. And so my bet is that they probably know of the pod as well. And because a lot of people that have seen my stuff, they listen to the podcast too. And so even though they come through organic or they come through a social channel, a lot of them listen to the podcast. It's just we don't know because it's hard to track this stuff. And that goes back to an episode we did maybe a month or two ago about how this concept of dark social, where you should try to track as much as you can, but you also shouldn't stress over trying to track every single metric.
And you shouldn't stress the ROI from every single marketing channel as well. Some channels are there for branding. Some are there to get you a direct ROI. Like, it really varies per business.
All right. So that is it for today. Go ahead.
No, I was saying it really varies per channel and like your business objectives.
All right. So that is it. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. It helps us grow, and we will see you later.